their feet. And in talking to them, and you discover that when this happened, Jesus washed all 12 of the disciples' feet, including Judas. Are y'all with me here? Stay with me. And after he washes Judas's feet and the rest of them, that's when a conversation jumps off regarding somebody that's around this table is going to betray me. He who dips his hand in the sop is the same one that's going to betray me. He's going to sell me out. He's going to deceive me. He's going to call. Now you notice when you read the text, he doesn't just call out his name. He just states the scenario. And if you read the passage, you will discover that the disciples were asking among themselves who this individual might be, because they all were concerned that he was referring to them. But what they noticed is that Judas soon got up from the table and left out to do, because Jesus had said, whatever you gonna do, you might well go head on and do it quickly. And Judas leaves, and they thinking that he's leaving because he's on business for the Messiah. After all, he was the treasurer of the group. And he might have been on a mission for Jesus, and he leaves the scene. But then the evening gets even more interesting. Jesus says that, because he says, I'm going away, and where I'm going, you cannot come, at least right now. Are y'all with me here? He says, I'm leaving y'all in a few days. It's been great. We've had some wonderful times. I want you to know that even though I'm leaving you physically, I'm going to still be with you in every way that matters. Jesus is saying, I'm leaving y'all. And Peter says, well, no, you ain't got to go. He says, I'm going to suffer. He says, I'm going to die for you. He said, now, wait a minute, Peter, before you get too ambitious, you need to understand that before this night is over, you're going to deny me 3 times. Are y'all with me here? So when you're in this room, you discover that it's a tough night for the disciples and Jesus, because Jesus has says, one of you going to deceive me or betray me. The other is going to deny me, which was a leading disciple. And oh, by the way, I'm leaving, going away, and you cannot come, at least right now. That's why when you get to the first verse of chapter 14, Jesus says, don't let your heart be troubled. He says, because if you believe in God, you can sure enough trust me. In my Father's house are many mansions, not the big mansions you and I know about here, but he's talking about dwelling places or spaces. Because if you understood anything about the ancient Near East, you would discover that whenever a son would get married, the father would build an extra wing onto the house so that his son can bring his new bride home. There was no shacking, there was no cohabitating, there was no staying together. They made arrangement with the dowry, and they understood that there was a betrothal period, and after that period and the wedding really took place and they got together, he would go get his wife, he would bring her to the house, to the room that's been built on to the Father's house. And what Jesus is basically saying to his disciples, that you don't have to let your heart be troubled. If you believe God, you sure enough can trust me, because when you see me, you see the Father. I and the Father are one, and since we are one, if you trust him, you sure enough trust me. That I'm going away for your benefit. I'm not deserting you. I'm not abandoning you. I'm going away for your benefit, and when the time is right, I'm coming back to get you, to take you to be with me, so that you can be at home with me and my daddy. Are y'all listening to me? So you don't have to let your heart be troubled. He said, I'm going away to prepare a place for you. And if I go away and prepare a place for you, look at this. He says, I'll come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. Notice he says, I'm going away, but I'm going away to my Father's house. Father was one of Jesus' favorite ways to address God. Even though the Bible is full of names and descriptions and adjectives used to describe God. Jesus' favorite one was to refer to him as his Father. In fact, he would often refer not only to God as his Father, but he would refer to the temple in which they worship as his Father's house. You remember when they were in the Father's house and they were with the money changers, gambling and all kind of stuff. And when Jesus went into the temple, he overturned the money changers and put people out. He said, "This is my Father's house, and my Father's house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves." He wanted them to know that this is my Father's house on earth. But I'm not going to the temple down the street right now. I'm going to my Father's house, which is in heaven. In fact, he says, that's where I came from before y'all met me. I was up there with the Father, and I was with him, but he sent me on a mission to save the earth. And since I've been here, you and I have developed relationships, and because you understand that I am the bread of life, and I am the light of the world, and I am the gate, and I am the good shepherd, and I am the resurrection and the life, you know that I'm going to my Father's house. I'm going to prepare a place for you, and then when the time comes, I'm coming back to get you, to take you home with me. So my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. I'll come again, receiving to myself, that where I'm there, you may be also. But you know, after all of that, Thomas said, wait a minute, hold on. We don't know where you're going. And how is it that we know the way? You're telling us you're going to leave, going to a place that you're going to prepare for us, and you're going to come back and get us later. We can't go with you now. You just told us a few verses ago that you're about to die, that you're about to be put in the hands of the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders, that they're going to crucify you on the outskirts of Jerusalem, that you're going to the Father's house, and yet you're going to leave us behind because we can't go right now, and you're telling us that I'm going away and I'll come back. We don't know which way you're going. And how is it that we can know the way? Jesus says, in essence, wait a minute, you don't understand, Thomas. He could have scolded him. He could have embarrassed him, because this is not like this is a subject that Jesus hadn't talked to his disciples about before. I mean, over the 3.5 years, he told them what was going to happen. He told them he was going to go back to the Father. He told them he had an appointment with the cross. But it's just something how when you hear the word death, it just has such a finality to it. Like it's all over, like it's hopeless, like you're hapless and helpless. And Jesus is saying to him, listen, while you're looking for navigation instructions, you need to understand that the way to the Father's house is standing in front of you. He says, listen, I'm not going to give you some data from some global positioning system. No. He says, I want you to understand that the direction to my Father's house is right here in front of you. In fact, he said, listen, you don't even have to worry about that, because I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. In other words, he says, not only do I know the way to the Father's house, but I am the way to the Father's house. Not only will I take you to the Father's house, you have a place at the Father's house, but I'm coming to get you to take you to the Father's house. Are y'all with me here? Let me see if I can put it to this way. There was a young boy who was riding on the train for the first time with his father. They were going down the tracks, and there was this stranger sitting across the aisle who tried to make conversation with him. He asked him, what's your name? And the boy wouldn't respond. He asked him again, what's your name? And the boy would not respond. And then he asked him, well, can you tell me how old are you? And the boy would turn, look at him, and then turn back the other way and would not respond to him. He kept trying, insisting to have a conversation with the young boy, to engage him, and the boy would not respond. He said, well, listen, can you at least tell me this? Which way are you heading? And this time the boy looks him in the face and says, I don't know where I'm going, but this is my daddy, and I'm with him. And wherever he's going, that's where I'm going. And I stopped to tell somebody, you might not have the directions to which you're headed, but if you got the one that you're going with, you ain't got to know the direction, because he is the direction. Have I got a witness here? Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the light. He was in essence telling them that I am the exclusive way, that there is no other way. There is a way, the Bible tells us, that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is the way of death. He says that I am the way, and I am the truth, and I am the life. No man can get to the Father except they come through me. I know we live in a time where there's so much spiritual and religious diversity. I know we live in a time where people frown and look at you sideways when you tell them that there is an exclusive way to God. I know there are people who will tell you it doesn't matter what you believe as long as you believe. But I'm here to tell you, if you expect to get to the Father's house, there's only one way you can go, and that is through Jesus. Have I got a witness here? Doesn't matter what plans you have to go to different spots and spaces in the world. You've never been there before, and you draw up your plans on how you're going to get there. They might present you a couple of possible routes that will take you to where you're going. Usually one of those routes is longer than the other. And they ask you, if you want to expedite some time, you ought to go this way. But if you want to go the scenic route, you ought to go this way. And it's up to you to decide which way you're going to go, because ultimately any one of them will take you to where you're headed. Have I got a witness here? And depending upon where you're going, you make preparations for the destination that you have in mind. But I'm stopped to tell you that heaven is not just any destination. It's not just any place you want to arrive. That there's only one way to get there, and it's through Jesus, who is the Christ. I wonder if there's anybody here that can testify that when you have Jesus in your life, he's the one that will take you where you gotta go. Have I got a witness here? He told these disciples, don't be troubled in your heart, because if you believe God, you can trust me. I'm going away for your benefit. I'm going to prepare a place for you at my Father's house. And when the time comes, I'm coming back to get you, to take you to where I am. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave you here because I'm preparing you for future ministry. I'm preparing you for future exploits in the kingdom. Have I got a witness here? That's why when you scroll over to chapter 17, Jesus prays for his disciples so that they will have the courage to hang on in there when the going gets tough and the tough gets going. He says you ought to hang in here and preach the gospel. You're going to have some people that's on your trail trying to take you down, but stand on what I told you. You're going to have some burdens that seem too heavy for you to carry, but hold on to what I told you. You're going to have some moments where you feel like you're not yourself, but hold on to what I told you, because in chapter 16 he's going to give them the Holy Spirit that's going to be their comforter, who's going to guide them into all truth and give them what they need. Have I got a witness here? He said, but in the meantime, you keep on preaching and proclaiming that if you want to go to heaven, the only way you're going to go is through Jesus, not through Mahatma Gandhi, not through Confucius, not through Zoroastrianism. Have I got a witness here? Not through Charles Russell. Have I got a witness? But through Jesus, who is the Christ. Can I tell you who he is? He's God wrapped up in flesh. He's divinity wrapped up in humanity. He's the Son of God. He's the seed of Jesse, the stem of Abraham. He's Joe's horse pawing in the valley. He's Ezekiel's wheel in the middle of a wheel. He's the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley. Is there anybody here that know what I'm talking about? And when you have Jesus, there is no other way. If you don't mind, tell somebody on your road that there is no other way. Jesus is the only way. He's the only way to salvation. He's the only way to sanctification. He's the only way to steadfastness. He's the only way to security. He's the only way to serenity. He's the only way to safety. Have I got a witness here? He's the only way to the Father's house. And when you got Jesus, storm may rise, winds may blow, sin breakers may dash, but if you got Jesus, he will. Yes, he will. I didn't get happy now, but he will pull you on in. Is there anybody here that know that's what the church is about? Telling them Jesus is the route. He is the path. He is the guide. He is the way. He is the direction. If you want to go up, you got to come through him. If you want to go in, you got to come through him. If you want to have joy, you got to come through him. If you want to have peace, you got to come through him. Is there anybody here that know if you want what God has, you got to go through Jesus? That's why he died on an old rugged cross. He died for your sins and mine. But early, I said early Sunday morning, I said early Sunday morning, he got up from the grave with all power in his hand. Power. Yes, he did. He's got power. But there is no other way. Jesus is the only way to get to him. And we extend the invitation to discipleship, further proclaiming that he is the only way, the exclusive way. There is no other name given among men